This video was filmed before Dragon Rising Season 3 came out, so it's spoiler free. During the War of Oni and the Dragons, the dragon deity known as Sourcefang, the source dragon of reality, entrusted 7 of his greatest soldiers with a fraction of his power. Giving away the elements of creation granted the dragon's side of the conflict an upper hand. The war concluded with many casualties. After one of the dragon warriors perished, the other 6 power-hungry fighters turned their back on Sourcefang. Thinking they're worthy of Sourcefang's power, the 6 dragons attacked. They, however, were still no match for the mighty Sourcefang. After a long battle, he trapped the traitors deep below the ground. The injured Sourcefang released his powers into the world, empowering generations of elemental masters to come and putting himself into deep millennia-long slumber. As we get closer to the release of Season 3, the Ninjago community seems more and more hyped about the newest villainous faction, the Forbidden Five. Well, myself included. We still know very little about these guys, because as of now, they didn't really get any time to shine, appearing only as minor characters in Season 2. But because of their interesting designs and what kids today call aura, they seem like the most interesting villain faction since, well, Sons of Garmadon, I suppose? If you read the title of this video, you know exactly what I'll be doing. I'm gonna take 5 of our beloved ninja and 5 of the newest additions to the ever-growing list of villains and swap their roles, with Forbidden 5 being the legendary and heroic ninja team now, and our heroes being the mischievous, trouble-causing Forbidden 5. Or 6 actually. I think Jay's Rouge persona is a good enough design for the Forbidden Jay. Before we continue, I wanna say that this video is going to be split into multiple parts. Why is that? Well, I got multiple reasons. First of all, I know your attention span wouldn't let you watch a video past 20-minute threshold. Second, the season is not out yet, at least at the time of recording this video. Some of my assumptions or information about the Forbidden Fight might be wrong, so I want to get a chance to correct them just in case. Third, I do not know how to make a good guy out of a person who has the power of decay. You can help me figure it out in the comment section. So, without further ado, let's move on to... Centuries later, Sourcefang was awakened by the event known as the Merge. Years later, his attention was drawn to the Blood Moon ritual, from which a certain figure appeared. The figure seemed to be using an element he gave out thousands of years prior. He knew trouble was on the way, so he decided to reach out to 5 elemental masters that stopped the ritual. And their leader, her name, was Rox. So, in the Ninjago canon, Rox, alongside her brother, are the leaders of the Forbidden Five. She has the power of fear, and uses this sword-like weapon. Her main outfit colors are black and brown, and her skin or fur color is orange. She's also quite short comparatively to other LEGO minifigures, and wears this mask thingy. So how do we use all of these information to make her into a good character? So, first of all, I started with a simple torso design akin to that of early ninja. Then, I added some more detail. I then added this dreamcatcher-like necklace, which I'll talk about later. An important detail I forgot about was her short legs. I of course continued the design from the torso down. Last, I gave her some boots. Now for the head. LEGO loves using this haircut for all of its Ninjago women, so I decided to go with it as well. For the face, I went with this confident smirk as well as big brown eyeshadow. In the end, here is the finished Ninja Rox. So, what is her deal? In this universe, she inherited her elemental powers from her parents. She's a teenager and the leader of her team, mimicking how Lloyd, the youngest member, is the leader of the ninja. Her clothing style is alternative, so she may be able to strike fear in the elderly. Speaking of her power, since she's a good guy now, I don't think she can run around with a power of fear. Since we're not exactly sure how her fear power works normally, I'm gonna do some assuming. I assume her power allows her to manipulate the mind of her target. Kind of like Scarlet Witch from Marvel movies. I think she can strike any kind of emotion, but chooses to exclusively target fear. So, in this universe, she's the master of dreams. She can enter and manipulate minds of other people. She exclusively uses it on people who consent, or people who are a serious threat. Of course, due to her unusual power, she sometimes can unconsciously use it on herself, which in times of doubt can even cause realistic nightmares. That's why she always carries a dream catcher on her neck to keep herself safe. That's everything I have to say about her, so let's move on to one of the new Forbidden 5. In Ninjago canon, Kai is a hot-headed yet charismatic member of the ninja team. He has the power of fire and uses a sword. He has a younger sister who he took care of since they were little. He is also the red ninja, but sometimes uses colors such as dark red or orange. So, let's turn him to the dark side. I started with this template. While looking for inspiration, I came across this vermilion armor piece. I thought of making this furnace-like armor for Kai, but eventually scrapped the idea. I decided to go with this hat and shoulder pad combo. Of course, I didn't want to rip off any of the official designs, but looking at Kerr, I saw an opportunity. What if I went with a similar bandaged up look for Kai, but with bandages covering big burn scars? So I started with this kimono design with one shoulder uncovered. I made it a bit fancier and gave him his symbol. I then put together this bandaged arm and went on to the face. I went with this disfigured face print covered mostly by bandages. In the end, I gave him this simple belt design. Here's how the figure turned out. In this story, he very obviously still is the master of fire. Well, not exactly. To sound as ominous as he can, he goes by the title Master of Arson. Of course, as you can see, as opposed to the canon Forbidden 5, he's not some fancy creature nor a mutated animal or whatever, but instead a normal human being with a bunch of scars. He of course takes pride in his scars, and his foes are scared of him, because if this is what fire does to his master, what does it do to a normal person? I'd like to imagine there is some backstory to him, where he used to be a normal person with a normal life, but due to some tragedy related to his sister, he learned black magic and was later noticed by the Dragon of Fire. So, let's move on to... Drix is this red insect-like person who possesses the element of swarm. He uses these two sickles as a weapon. He wears a black robe with a red belt. His face and his stomach area are red as well. Also in the show, he wears this comically oversized hat. Now that I think about it, his design is really symmetrical. I usually associate bugs, such as cockroaches or bedbugs mostly, with mess or filth, so it's a neat little contrast. So, first of all, I wanted to make him into a human. I decided to keep the overall shape of his torso with a belt and an exposed chest area. The insect on his belt back looks kinda aggressive, so I made it into this more neutral looking design. I then decided that black and red don't fit this design, so I changed it into this brown and orange design. I added these golden decorations onto his robe to mimic beast stripes. I also gave him this color to imitate him having a sweater. Then the belt and legs. Last, I wanted to keep his unique eye shape, so I decided to give him these goggles. As for his hair, I thought about it and I think I found a perfect piece. There was this Lego ad featuring a character with bug-like antennae coming out of their hair. I think this piece would be perfect. It actually exists and was used on these video characters. Does anyone even remember video? That was such a failure. Unfortunately, it's not on Mechabricks, so you just have to imagine that this hairpiece has antennae. Here's the final design. In this universe, he's a Zane stand-in. The smart, autistic coded character. Just like with Season 1 Zane, people in his team find him weird. I mean, it's not every day you find a person who's interested in bugs. I'd like to imagine that prior to joining the team, he was an aspiring entomologist. It's a person who's a bug biologist. Speaking of bugs, he is now the master of insects. He can make contact with bugs and can create these honey-like constructs. And I think he loses the power to transform into bugs just because it was kinda weird and unsettling. Let's take a short break from redesigning characters. Since I already swapped the Source Dragons with Thunderfang and swapped a few of the characters, I think it would be neat if their weapons swapped as well. The 5 prismatic blades now become the golden blades, the golden weapons of Spinjitzu now become the prismatic weapons of Spinjitzu. So now, since fire, ice, earth and lightning are no longer the main elements, we're gonna have to change the weapons to fit the new elements. Starting with Roxy's weapon, the Blade of Dreams. Similar to the Sword of Sanctuary from Season 5, this blade allows the user to see a vision within the blade's reflection. The vision, however, instead of being the vision of the future, is the vision of reflected person's dreams, fears or whatever emotion else. Of course, its power is not all that combat focused, but it's still a blade nonetheless, so you can still do some damage. The Fists of Strength. Just like the Shuriken, there's 2 of this weapon, but it technically counts as 1. It gives the user enhanced strength. With this on, you can lift a car without a problem. This obviously belongs to the good version of Noct. The Insect Stinger. This is Drix's weapon. It's obviously meant to mimic his skies. The stinger part itself can be used to temporarily paralyze the enemy, similar to that of Wolf from Kipo or Vesperia from Miraculous. Not really related to the element itself, but I think it somewhat fits. The Die of Luck. For the sake of simplicity, it's only 6-sided, even though it low-key should be the 20-sided one. Of course, throwing it causes an event that is based on your current situation. So if you are fighting an enemy, for example, and get a 6, something happens that will cause you to win that fight. It also has a cooldown, so you can't just spam it. And the final weapon? The Prismatic Axe. Well, that's it. I have nothing to say about that weapon. It doesn't do anything. And why? Why is that? It's because I still don't know what this universe's curse powers are. You still have to help me out with this one. Now that we got the weapons established, let's go back to... It's the turn of our cake-loving ninja. He's the master of earth, who uses a scythe. He appears serious and tough, but in reality is the biggest goofball of the ninja team. His gi are usually black, with a secondary orange color. I started with this fully black minifigure, and then quickly revisited the vermilion armor idea. I gave him this rock-like texture on the body, and made it a bit more interesting to look at. Then I continued the design onto the belt, and then the legs. The lower you look, the more magma-like he becomes. I kinda wanted to visualize the idea that despite the armor being sort of a prison, it is also keeping him together. And the further from the armor, the less stable he is. I had a little problem with thinking of his hairpiece. Half of his head is covered by the armor piece, so the choice was a bit limited. Luckily, I got an idea. I found this Groot headpiece on Mechabricks and thought that it would kind of work with his Rocky aesthetic. I continued the texture onto his head and added the eyes. Here's the final product. So, what happened to him? In this universe, after the death of his mother, Cole isolated himself, quite literally. Powers immediately showed up and locked him with this rocky layer. It's sort of an incomplete golden form from Dragon's Rising. His powers are also now called... well, I'm not sure. At first I was thinking something like magma, but it doesn't sound that much more dangerous than Earth. Master of Burial maybe? Well, that sounds dangerous. Or maybe a Master of Tectonics? That sounds more serious, but I wouldn't say dangerous. Of course, at some point he was imprisoned within this armor, which somewhat limits his power and his movement. I'd like to imagine he's a little bit bigger than a standard LEGO minifigure, just like Karlov is after using his powers. Since his heart is quite literally behind a thick layer of stone, he never shows his softer side to anyone. He has a secret though. He loves cake so much that after eating it he is in such a good mood that he can't maintain his golem form and turns back to human. Isn't he sweet? Up next... Zark is this mysterious person locked within this cage-like hut and these golden chains. He has the power of misfortune, which causes a negative event to happen to the target. He wears a green robe, but his head and this energy are black with purple details. The weapon of his choice is a flail. I wanted to keep the green aesthetic for this character, so I started with a green ninja suit. Of course, since this character is associated with luck manipulation, what is a better suited pattern than a 4-leafed clover? To keep it consistent with his original suit, I decided to give him a golden chain, then a belt, and the legs. I created this simple face, but then I thought, why not do something fun? So I turned him into a snake person. I like Zark's unique headwear, so to give him a similar aesthetic, I decided to give him the kendo helmet. In the end, here's the good Zarkt. So, why is he a snake? Why is he wearing a kendo helmet, and what's with this golden chain? All three of these are related to his power. To not make him too OP, his power is not just reverse version of misfortune. His power is now called luck, and upon using it, a literal die is rolled, and an event, either positive or negative, can happen. It's a powerful element, but can also cause so much trouble. When Zark first used his power, he got a 6, and randomly found this very expensive necklace. On the other hand, once he used his power and rolled a 1, which transformed him into a snake. Furthermore, the other time he rolled a 1, an anvil almost fell on his head, so he decided to permanently wear this kendo armor for his own protection. Due to the random nature of his power, I think he would be a sort of comic relief under comic relief underdog character that you just love to see succeed. Okay, enough of him, let's move on. Zane is an android created by Dr. Julian. He's a smart character as he has an access to many databases. He has the power of ice and formerly used the shuriken and later the bow. He is the white ninja and nowadays usually has an azure color in his color scheme. I love that in the recent sets we got a shirtless variant, so I decided to base my evil Zane on that. I started with his mechanical boobs, then a set of his clothes on his stomach akin to that of Overlord. A fun idea I had was, what if his heart was literally frozen? He's literally cold-blooded. Well, not that literally, his heart doesn't pump any blood. Then I moved to some finer details. I added some battle damage and this liquid inside. Perhaps it's liquid nitrogen? Then for the belt, I was kind of inspired by Rox's. Then the legs. I then gave him this angry expression with small irises. And then the full coat color. Here's finished Zane. So I guess in this universe he never became a real boy, like in the original timeline. In this universe, he is the master of frostbite. Some say his metal body is so cold that if you touch him, it burns you. What would his backstory be? I think Zane set out to find a way to turn into a human. One of the warrior dragons promised it to him as a reward for freeing them. Of course, as soon as he was bestowed the ice powers, his heart froze and the dark energy turned him evil. None of the other team members know his true intentions, and he himself slowly forgets the true goal of the mission. By the time I finished editing the video, the summer wave of sets was revealed, so I can compare all of the official figures to that of my own. Once again, I'd love to hear your idea for the good core. I had so much fun making this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to share which minifigure was your favorite. By the way, thank you everyone for helping me reach 1000 subs. It's incredible that we were able to reach it with just 3 videos so far. I have a bunch of ideas for the next few videos, but just for your information, one of the upcoming videos might not be about minifigure. A bit of different content than the one I made so far, but I think you'll still enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, leave your opinions and suggestions, leave a like and a sub, and see you next time. Bye!